Welcome back, everyone. We got the Austro-Prussian War, Battle of Königgrätz. This is where it all comes down to in terms of the retreat, the meetup, the final stand for maybe not the war, but really to kind of like keep these Prussians at bay. They've just been overwhelming the Austrians. Here we go. Glad you're here with me. Let's get it.
Under a shroud of heavy rain and amidst the rugged terrain, Austrian Commander-in-Chief Ludwig von Benedek meticulously orchestrated his forces on July 3, 1866, as the spectre of battle loomed large. With an army of around 240,000 troops, Benedek's strategic placement of his corps provided a sense of security for the Austrian troops. The heights of Chlum served as the fulcrum, defended by strong Austrian divisions, while corps under Festetics, Thun and Gablens bolstered the line, their cannons poised for devastating onslaught. Facing them, the Prussian forces, led by Bittenfeld's Army of the Elbe and Friedrich Karl's First Army, totaling 124,000 soldiers,
So 2-1 odds, Austria.
prepared for the imminent clash. At dawn, King Wilhelm, flanked by Bismarck, arrived. The fact their army was outnumbered nearly 2-1, and they had no idea where Prussia's Second Army was, led to uncertainty clouding their minds as they gazed upon the formidable Austrian formation. As the clock neared 9 a.m., Friedrich Karl ordered a daring advance, hoping to secure crucial ground and pave the way for the arrival of this Second Army. Little did they know that the Austrian artillery, positioned strategically and armed with ample ammunition, stood ready to unleash a storm of destruction, turning the pristine morning into a battleground of chaos and bloodshed.
Okay, here we go.
Ever find yourself further spam QR code plus subscription? Don't miss.
The army's purpose is to serve, fight, and if necessary, die with honor for the Emperor and Supreme Warlord. The Emperor, of course, at this time, I think is still Franz Joseph. And he has not had a lot of wins as Emperor.
In the turbulent summer of 1866, Europe stood on the precipice of a colossal clash. Within a week, half a dozen battles had raged, armies had moved, and the Bohemian theater bore witness to two exhausted armies, the advancing Prussians and the retreating Austrians. The Prussian First Army under Prince Friedrich Karl had recently dealt a crippling blow to the Austrian First Corps, led by General Clam Gallas in the bloody engagement at Gitchen.
Really
Meanwhile,
bad.
the Crown Prince's Second Army, against firm opposition, had pressed on to Königgrätz. As June drew to a close, the Prussian First Army drew ominously close to the Second Army, while the Austrians seemingly vanished from sight, leaving Prussian cavalry in the dark. With a decisive showdown on the horizon, Prussian Chief of Staff Helmuth von Moltke urged King Wilhelm and army headquarters to join the front lines, arriving at Gitchen on July 1st. Moltke's orders were clear. The Second Army was to remain on the left bank of the Upper Elbe and connect with the advancing First Army near Königgrätz, while the Elbe Army, commanded by Helmuth von Bittenfeld, was tasked with assaulting the enemy's right flank. On July 2nd, the War Council convened. Uncertainty clouded the atmosphere. No one could pinpoint the exact location of Benedek's forces, and speculation ran rampant. Some believed the Austrians had retreated behind the Elbe River, calling for the armies to unite. But Moltke held a different view. Keep the armies separate until the elusive Benedek's true whereabouts
Wait, King Wilhelm, I just realized he's right there.
were revealed. Uncertainty gripped the War Council. Meanwhile, General Benedek, battered and disheartened by losses, beseeched Emperor Franz Joseph for peace to spare his army from an imminent catastrophe. Yet his pleas fell on deaf ears.
Joseph has never, from what I've seen in the Italian unification and now in the German unification, Joseph has not been a peacemaker I mean, eventually he is, but not up front, no.
And an ambiguous imperial decree was taken as a call for a final stand. Benedek, now cornered, positioned his Austrian forces along the Elbe between Sadowa and Königgrätz, preparing for a last-ditch effort. In the Prussian camp, tension was palpable. After capturing Gitchen, the First and Elbe armies linked up, eagerly awaiting intelligence on the Austrian North Army's location. When scouts finally unveiled the enemy's position on the evening of July 2nd, Friedrich Karl swiftly ordered a general advance, driven by a thirst for glory. However, his initial orders excluded the Second Army, a decision that was promptly rectified by the vigilant Chief of Staff, Helmuth von Moltke. With revised orders in hand, the Crown Prince's 110,000-strong army embarked on a forced march southward, uncertain of the horrors that awaited them. As dawn broke on that fateful day, the king, generals, and their entourage gathered. The first echoes of battle reverberated through the air, marking the beginning of the monumental Battle of Königgrätz.
Here we go. Prussian existence is at stake. There will be no retreat. Moltke to King Wilhelm. He's very confident.
On July 3rd, the large Austrian army deployed as heavy rain fell from low-hanging clouds. Their area of choosing was surrounded by woods and elevations. To its direct north lay the Sweepeld, a forest over a mile long and a half-mile deep with few trails, where underbrush sufficiently tangled to disrupt even experienced bushfighters. The army's pivot point was on the heights of Chlum. On the right, two corps, Tassilo Festetics' 4th and Karl von Thun's 2nd, with a total of 55,000 men and 176 guns, faced northward. Their task was to repel the Prussian Second Army if it were to arrive. At the Chlum Heights,
that's a lot of people just to be waiting.
Benedek posted Archduke Ernest's 3rd Corps, facing west toward the Bistritz. South of it was Gablen's 10th Corps, making a total of 44,000 men backed by 134 guns.
So the majority of the men and artillery is just chilling. Okay.
Extending the line southeast was the Saxon Corps, supported by what remained of Archduke Leopold's 8th Corps, 40,000 men,
wow,
and 140 guns expected to secure the North Army against any threat to its left flank.
Okay.
In reserve, Benedek retained Clamgallus's 1st Corps, ramming 6th Corps, his heavy cavalry, and the Army Artillery Reserve. Almost 50,000 infantry, over 11,000 horsemen, and no fewer than 320 guns.
So they got some men. Okay. So Prussia is going to have a knockout blow.
The Austrian army of around 240,000 troops faced Bittenfeld's army of the Elbe, numbering 39,000, and Friedrich Karl's First Army, numbering 85,000. They had been marching for hours before sunrise, and had to pin the Austrian army in place until the Crown Prince's 100,000-strong Second Army arrived. King Wilhelm, accompanied by Bismarck, arrived on horseback at 7:45 a.m. at the
That's crazy how close they are.
Prussian command post established.
It's not
by Prince
crazy,
Friedrich
but
Karl,
it's still insane.
Overlooking the Bistritz. They were not yet sure if they faced the entire Austrian army. At 9 a.m., Friedrich Karl ordered a general advance across the Bistritz. The Prussian Pomeranian Second Corps, comprising the 3rd and 4th Divisions, forded the stream with relative ease and drove the Austrian Jägers from the 10th Corps back to Langenhof Hill. Austrian shells crashed among the advancing Prussians with devastating results. The Austrian artillery caused the majority of the damage, positioned strategically with ample ammunition. The Prussian attempts to advance were quickly thwarted, as the Austrian Jäger, deployed as skirmishers, targeted exposed Prussian infantry with deadly precision from beyond the effective range of their needle guns. The casualties among officers and sergeants were particularly high, leading to a lack of leadership and a growing number of disorganized
So we already have a Prussian retreat early. That's not good for Prussia.
soldiers retreating in groups. By noon, entire battalions seemed to be straggling backwards due to the combined effect of artillery fire and skilled Austrian marksmen. Meanwhile, to the north, a dire situation was unfolding for the Austrians. The events began at approximately 8 a.m. when the Prussian 7th Division ventured into the Sweepwald. Its commander, von Franzeki, recognized the urgency of relieving pressure on the frontal assault. Despite the daunting terrain, the 7th Division pressed forward. Taking matters into his own hands, he led his division into the forest, fully aware of the risks, including the vulnerable left flank that drew the attention of 2 vigilant Austrian.
Yeah, they're just chilling waiting for the Second Army, but they could easily come and wrap around.
Generals. Heinrich Horn's 8th Division provided crucial support. Together, they swiftly cleared Benetech, forging ahead into the dense Sweepwald. Franzeki recognized the forest's strategic significance, vital for communication lines once the Second Army arrived. In a surprising move, the Prussians swiftly ousted an Austrian brigade from the forest depths, catching the attention of 2 entire Austrian corps. Upon witnessing his brigade being pushed out, Festetics, quick on his feet, demanded a counterattack. The retreating soldiers had to pivot and traverse open ground towards the Prussian vanguard. The Prussians, armed with the deadly Dreyse needle rifle, unleashed rapid volleys of fire upon the advancing Austrians. Half of Festetics' men never reached the safety of the woods, falling to the relentless Prussian onslaught. Within a mere 30 minutes, all 7 battalions were so scattered that the once formidable brigade was rendered ineffective. In response, Festetics dispatched 2 more brigades into the Sweepwald, launching a
It's a meat grinder. Here we go. We saw this before.
determined counterattack in battalion columns. This assault was skillfully coordinated by Festetics' second-in-command, Anton von Moltke. Meanwhile, to the south, the Saxons relentlessly rained down fire upon Bittenfeld's 3 advancing divisions. Bittenfeld, recognizing the peril, ordered Brigadier General von Schürler and his 7 battalions of the advance guard to fall back to the river around 10 o'clock, adopting a defensive posture. Up to this point, the Austrian Lawrence rifle, with its superior range, held the upper hand, leaving the outnumbered Prussians unable to advance against the relentless artillery barrage.
So Austria's got that long-range rifle, so in closer combat, Prussia's got the upper hand, vice versa Austria.
Or effectively engage the Austrian infantry. Simultaneously, the Sweepwald transformed into a chaotic, smoke-filled battleground, where organized formations on both sides dwindled into mere clusters of survivors, led by whoever could set an example and convey orders coherently. Festetics, wounded and out of commission, saw Molinari taking charge and convinced Count Karl Thun of the 2nd Corps to lend support with 2 additional brigades.
This army's supposed to be meant for the 100,000 that's coming, I thought.
By 11 a.m., these fresh troops descended into the woods, sealing the impending victory. Colonel Karl von Puck, leading the charge against the Prussians, was determined. Yet, flanking fire from the Prussian 8th Division raked Pock's battalion, annihilating it as an effective fighting force and claiming the life of its commander. Within the besieged sector, only Franzeki's 2 Prussian battalions stood resilient, defending against the onslaught. Exhausted from a grueling 2-hour firefight and enduring heavy artillery bombardment, they faced an overwhelming force of 24 fresh battalions, resulting in the loss of 2,000 men during this intense battle for supremacy. King Wilhelm was ready to commit the First Army's reserves to what looked like the crisis point of the field. Moltke intervened, even though there was no sign of the Crown Prince and no sound of his artillery. Until relief arrived from the north, the 2 divisions still at the First Army's disposal must be kept in hand against a general Austrian counterattack.
Okay, that
I
makes
know
sense.
Franzeki, the Chief of Staff declared. He'll hold out. While the engagement to the north remained uncertain, Bittenfeld ordered another advance. Prince Albert's riflemen and artillery effectively held off 3 Prussian divisions who hesitated to engage closely due to the ongoing battle. When a Saxon brigade launched a counterattack and nearly broke through in one area, Albert took the initiative by deploying 2 additional brigades from his own forces and 2 borrowed from Archduke Leopold's 8th Corps.
Big attack.
The Saxons executed their attack in a disciplined manner, steadily advancing. However, the Austrians, advancing
However, the Austrians is literally the theme of this entire series.
alongside the Saxons, found themselves flanked by a Prussian brigade that redirected its fire toward them instead. Brigade Schultz, advancing in columns with skirmishers at the front, unknowingly ran into 3 Prussian battalions deployed in line formation. The Prussian troops fired rapidly, causing heavy casualties among the Austrians. A second brigade sent to relieve the pressure suffered a similar fate, being torn apart by the Prussian needle guns.
Jeez.
Some soldiers surrendered immediately, while others retreated along their original line of advance.
Bad morale.
Some took the path of least resistance and fled south,
Oh no.
colliding with the Saxons and creating a chaotic mass of targets for the Prussian riflemen.
Oh no.
Without waiting for orders, officers of the Prussian 15th Division took command of whatever men they could find in the dust and smoke, and pushed toward the gap that had suddenly opened between the Saxon Corps and the Austrian center.
Oh
Gablens,
no.
alerted by the changing locations of the firing, informed his commander that either reserves must be committed on his left, or he would have to shift part of the 3rd Corps to secure the line. Before that was necessary, the Saxons regained their momentum and launched several well-aimed volleys, once again halting the Elbe army's advance.
Okay.
In the heart of the Sweetwald, chaos reigned as Colonel Molinary, driven by desperation, hurled his battalions into a final, desperate onslaught against Franzecki's resolute Prussian division. The air crackled with tension as Franzecki, his voice a beacon of determination, rallied his remaining men, urging them to stand firm against the looming storm. "Hold on, boys." Franzecki encouraged those able to hear him. "It's stand or die." Yet the much-feared onslaught never materialized. The Sweetwald fell eerily silent as the Austrians, decimated and disheartened, had nothing left to give. Together, the 2nd and 4th Corps numbered 59 battalions. A staggering 43 had ventured into the dense forest, only to emerge shattered and decimated. Just 13 stood intact. 8 additional battalions, although rallied and reorganized, wavered on the precipice of battle, their willingness to fight uncertain. The remaining 21 units faced a grim fate, ensnared in the unforgiving tangle of the woods or crushed beneath the relentless fire of Franzecki's needle guns. Benedek, acutely aware of the vulnerability of his right flank, made strategic decisions. He ordered Molinary and Thun to return to their original positions, attempting to salvage what remained of his shattered forces. However, discord reigned within his ranks as generals clashed over the course of action. Around noon, Friedrich Karl had brought up his reserve, the 2 divisions of the 3rd Brandenburg Corps. As the Prussian forces came within range of Austrian batteries, they suffered significant casualties without achieving immediate tactical gains. Then, Gablenz's 10th Corps advanced towards the front lines. Despite Prussia's initial success, the Austrians had more tenacity than they were able to deal with. Then, at 1 p.m., Bismarck observed the battlefield with his telescope. He noticed what he initially mistook for a line of trees on Horonhaus Heights moving forward.
Here comes the Crown Prince!
Informing Moltke, they both concluded that the battle was won and Vienna was within their grasp. Almost unnoticed by both sides, the Crown Prince's Second Army had successfully captured the strategically important high ground of
100,000 men,
Horonhaus.
apparently.
As they approached the Austrian rear, the Crown Prince ordered his subordinates to form a gun line, open fire on the high ground around Horonhaus, and make enough noise to let the king know that help is on its way. By 12:30 p.m., 90 guns were bombarding the Austrian guns. Enjoying a much longer range, the Austrian guns turned around and began bombarding the Prussian positions. As they bombarded the Austrians, General Louis Mutius led his 6th Prussian Corps around the left flank of the 1st Guards. The Second Army crossed the Tretinka River from the north in a
Oh my god, just look at that Prussian line. It's just, I don't see how they get stopped.
pincer movement towards the Maslowed Plateau. Most battered Austrian battalions dispersed after a few shots, having spent the entire morning fighting in the Sweetwald. The battalion in Klum village was destroyed before it knew what was happening. 400 of its men surrendered, almost without a fight to Prussians, who seemed to appear from nowhere. 2 more battalions attempted a counterattack and had 600 shot down in a few minutes. 3 companies of the Guard bypassed the fighting in the village, instead advancing downhill into the neighboring village of Rosberitz. News of the approach of Prussia's Second Army also reignited Bittenfeld's resolve to charge.
Oh my
sent-
gosh, like this is just getting dominoed effect.
A full division forward. they captured Probluz. By 3:30 p.m., the Saxon corps fell back. Bittenfeld moved his batteries onto
Or not domino, snowball
the
effect.
captured Twin Hills to cannonade Gablen's 10th Corps from their flank. Benedek ordered Piret to recapture Probluz when news arrived that the Prussians had captured Chlum and were in their rear. What remained of Benedek's 2nd and 4th Corps were dissolving, their men seeking any way out of the smoke-shrouded inferno. The Austrian 3rd Corps was beginning to fade back from its positions along the Bistritz. Across Benedek's entire right wing, increasing numbers of Austrians were giving way before limited numbers of Prussians. Thun, on his own authority, ordered what remained of the 2nd Corps to pull out of line and retreat toward the Elbe. When the Prussians atop Probluz and Chlum began shelling the position of the Austrian reserve units, a substantial number of soldiers dropped their muskets and packs and fled across the countryside
no morale.
to escape the surging enemy. The sea of panicked Austrian troops fleeing from the front lines swept Benedek and his small entourage along with it toward the Elbe.
Oh my god.
Troops from 7 Corps and 5 cavalry divisions were squeezed into a pocket, no more than a half-mile wide, trying to reach the Elbe. Although Benedek had ordered 4 pontoon bridges constructed earlier in the day,
How many was actually built?
in case retreat became necessary, neither the troops nor their officers had been told how to reach them.
This is a horrendous nightmare.
In the chaos unfolding in the Bistritz pocket, it was impossible for the 2 Austrian infantry corps commanders charged with counter-attacking Chlum to coordinate their actions.
They're still just chilling there. What are they doing?
Nevertheless, Ramming and Gondrecourt ordered their troops to change direction and attack.
Finally.
Ramming's counterattack began around 3:15 p.m., with General Ferdinand Rosenzweig's brigade on the left, sweeping aside a few companies of Prussian fusiliers stationed around the village of Rosberg. The Prussians retreated north on a sunken road from Rosberg toward Chlum, with Rosenzweig's infantry in hot pursuit. Without realizing it, the pursuing Austrians ran into a trap. Prussian infantry hiding in the fields to the west sprang up and fired at point-blank range into the stunned Austrians. In an effort to support Rosenzweig, Ramming ordered General Georg Waldstadten's brigade into action, but retreating Austrian cavalry rode through their own lines, severely disrupting the formations. Before they could realign, Prussian rifles and cannons ripped into their ranks.
Jeez.
Realizing the futility of his situation, Ramming called off the attack. In a short time, he had lost nearly 6,000 men. Gondrecourt's attack followed on the
This is like masterclass of failure for Austria.
heels of Ramming's attack. As he repositioned his 3 brigades to face north, the Prussians poured continuous rifle fire into the Austrian 1st Corps. Gondrecourt personally led a Slovenian regiment up the slopes of Chlum into a hail of enemy fire. After taking heavy losses, he broke off the attack, having miraculously survived the experience. Gondrecourt's
Everything they do fails.
attack sputtered out before 5 p.m., and the survivors fled east. Some dispersed Austrian cavalry contingents were successful at covering the Austrian rear, keeping the bridges over the Elbe open for retreating Austrian soldiers, and preventing pursuit by the Prussians, but at a terrible cost. 2,000 men and almost as many horses were killed, wounded, or captured in action. Benedek ordered the pontoon bridges destroyed for fear the Prussians would capture them intact. His decision left large numbers of Austrian and Saxon infantry and cavalry stranded on the west bank.
They're gonna get surrounded.
Many refugees, unwilling to wait for the bottleneck at the causeway to subside, plunged into the river and drowned. The battle ended with heavy casualties for the Austrians. The Austrians and allies had more than 44,000 men killed, wounded, or missing, with 22,170 captured.
Wow.
That is 8,000 per hour, or 133, more than half an infantry company each minute. The Prussians lost roughly 9,000 troops, 7,000 wounded, 2,000 killed, and a surprisingly low number of 278 missing. That night, Benedek telegraphed Franz Joseph, "The catastrophe I warned you of 2 days ago happened today." Refusing to accept responsibility for the disaster, Benedek blamed foul weather and disloyal subordinates for the debacle.
Wow. German unity is not at this moment a ripe fruit. Bismarck. Just 3 years later.
The following morning, Austria's General Gablins appeared at the Prussian headquarters. He proposed a 3-day armistice. Suspicious of Gablins's intentions, they rejected the offer, suspecting it was a ruse to facilitate the escape of the retreating North Army toward Olmütz. Indeed, Benedek decided to retreat towards Olmütz partially due to familiarity and the need for immediate rest and reorganization for his troops. Amidst this, diplomatic efforts were in play. On July 2nd, Austria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mensdorf, sought French mediation and sweetened the deal by offering Venetia directly to France. Napoleon, initially indecisive due to internal weaknesses, leaned toward military intervention but vacillated. Bismarck strategically used the threat of German nationalism and Magyar separatism to deter French involvement. The aftermath of the battle saw Austria's fortunes spiral into despair. Italian offensives in the south, coupled with the pillaging by the Prussian First Army in Bohemia and Upper Austria, left the once mighty empire vulnerable and isolated. Other German states capitulated to Prussia, and even France remained indifferent to Austria's plight. Now the road to Vienna lay open for the Prussian army. In the midst of negotiations and logistical struggles, Bismarck persuaded King Wilhelm to accept a moderate peace. Despite initial reluctance, Wilhelm agreed to the terms.
Okay.
The preliminary agreement saw Prussia receiving an indemnity of 40 million florins, allowing annexations, abolition of the Confederation, and recognition of a new association of states north of the main river.
We gotta pause this. North German Confederation, successor of the German Confederation. So this is a different alliance that's separate of Austria, I'm guessing. 1866 North German Confederation originated as a military alliance after Prussia's triumph in the Austro-Prussian War. Established in the August of 1866, so afterwards it transitioned into a confederated state in July 1867, laying the groundwork for German unification. Its exception dissolved the previous German Confederation governed by constitutional monarchy with a Prussian king as the head of state. It enacted the first federal constitution in 1867. So wow.
This marked a turning point, avoiding prolonged antagonism with Austria while securing significant territorial and financial gains for Prussia.
Wow.
With no allies and facing overwhelming odds, Emperor Franz Joseph made the painful decision to surrender. The subsequent Peace of Prague, signed on August 23rd, dealt a harsh blow to Austria. They were forced to cede Holstein, withdraw from German politics entirely, and pay the hefty compensation. This defeat marked Prussia's triumphant expansion, absorbing Schleswig-Holstein, Hanover, Hesse-Kassel, Nassau, and Frankfurt. But the German Empire was not born yet, and the following 5 years would be crucial for Germany's development. Thank you very much for watching.
That was an exciting series. I believe that was the last video. He might make more in the future. That was obviously, he put a cap on it right there, but he might have individual battles in the future. Austria has weakened severely since the start of this war. Really since Schleswig-Holstein, really even before that, when he coupled with Napoleon down there in Lombardy and XYZ. It just seems like Austria has become the fifth of the greatest five. The great five being UK, France, Austria, Prussia, Russia. Feels like Austria's number 5 now. It really does. It really does. It feels like Prussia's 4. France is 3. Russia's 2. UK's 1. That's what it feels like. That's my order right now. I'm not sure if that's right. It feels right. What will happen from here? We'll have to see. I appreciate you guys watching the series. Like I said before, this might not be the most exciting series, but it's a very interesting and important part of history. Given the wars leading up to German unification with the Schleswig-Holstein Wars, as well as the second version of that, as well as the subsequent invasion of Austria for the Austro-Prussian War. Really lively I'm trying to find the word, it embarks a mission for Bismarck to continue the German war for unification, and it continues a prideful nationalist movement. From here, you guys know what happens. 1871 is, I believe, when Germany becomes unified. And yeah, there's a lot more history to uncover together. Appreciate you watching. Make sure you hit that like button and make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bye-bye.